I'm Lez Graham, and I'm a dog behaviour specialist or canine behaviourist, whatever label I'm going at. And I specialise in gun dogs. I do a lot of gun dog stuff, although I do work with all breeds as well. I've got a master's degree in canine behaviour and psychology. I got that in 2011. I spent the last couple of years actually looking at equipment and the impact of equipment on our dog's body. So really spent a lot of time looking at harnesses, head collars and just a regular flat collar and seeing the difference of them. I've written 5 books. First book came out in 2010, which was The Pet Gun Dog. There's 3 books in the Pet Gun Dog series, and then my most recent book, The Well-Mannered Dog, is non-breed specific, and that sits with Manners Not Mayhem. We do a podcast with my friend Ross McCarthy. We do that every fortnight called Gun Dogs and Guard Dogs. He's very much into guard dogs, I'm into gun dogs. We talk a lot of nonsense most of the time, but there's some real snippets in there too. I train accredited pet gun dog instructors to train my methods, and I also train dog trainers and behaviourists. And I run the Pet Gun Dog Club. I've got an online training club called the Pet Gun Dog Club, which is ideal if you want to train a dog and you're not near a trainer to help. So that's why the club was set up, to help people who aren't near dog trainers or who can't get to class because they're too busy or work shift. So that's me. That's me. Okay, so there's a few things looking at that. It's like a really broad outline. I would be looking to bring the dog into the waiting room when there's nobody in. So chat to your receptionists and just say, my dog's not settling down, and can I just bring the dog in and do some desensitisation with her and some training with her in the waiting room. So once you've got that agreed, leave your other dog at home. It's really difficult to train 2 dogs at the same time. So if you haven't got any destructive behaviour with your other dog, leave her in the car. Bring the dog in that you've got an issue with, and just train her to sit or down on command, use a bit of food, give her a little stroke, but keep the energy really calm and really quiet, no flustering or shouting or anything. And once you've gotten her down, just stand on the lead so that you're not fiddling with it, because that'll go straight down the lead and make her fiddle as well. So put her down. If you haven't trained her down, bring some treats in and do some training at the vets in the waiting room. Train her to sit, stand, down. Give her something to occupy her rather than just worrying about the smells. And when you first come in as well, just stand in the corner. But you know what I mean? Just stand off to one side and do nothing with your dog. And when she comes in, just let her calibrate her nose to all of the different smells. Her nostrils work independently, so she'll be sniffing one end of the room while she's sniffing the other end of the room. If you just stand quietly and let her do that, and then bring her in, make a point of not letting anybody stroke her. Vets' waiting rooms are a bit of a nightmare really. You've got everybody coming in with all of these dogs that are completely over the top. They're all adrenalised, the owners are worried or they're concerned, they're worried about how the dog's going to behave, so that's bringing the stress levels up. And then everybody wants to stroke your dog, and every dog that comes in wants to come nose to nose with your dog. So you have to kind of put this invisible barrier around your dog and say, I'm not going to have anybody come over. Nobody come over and stroke it, no dog come in my dog's space. And if you have to do things like watch me with the dog where you're training it to look at you with a bit of food, I would be doing that. You will get odd looks. I always get odd looks because I don't let anybody stroke the dogs, not even the vet nurses. And as a result, the dogs will settle and just ignore everybody. So a bit of training in different places as well when you're out walking. Teach your dog just to stop and do nothing. When we're out walking with the dogs, we want to be walking the dogs. If we're training, we want to be training the dogs. But really the best thing you can do is to teach your dog to stop and do nothing. So I started doing that on walks as well. Every now and again, just stop, put your dog in a sit, get your phone out, catch up on texts, and then start walking again. So your dog learns when you stop, it's their job to stop as well and relax. Okay, so the important question is why do you want them to meet other dogs? And I know it's a human thing, we want the dogs to go off and play with other dogs, but really you want your dog to be with you. So if you're walking your dog, it should be between you and your dog and not necessarily about all the dogs it's going to meet, because very quickly the walk can become about the other dogs, and that might have been what happened if he's been allowed to play with other dogs. Then it becomes excitement. Quite often what happens with 8-month-old is they've been allowed to play with other dogs when they see them, and then they're allowed to play with other dogs on the lead as well. And then before you know it, you might be in a hurry one day and you've decided you don't want to let your dog go off and play with another dog, and then it starts barking out of frustration. It wants to go over and say hello to the other dog, it wants to go and play with them, starts pulling on the lead, starts barking out of frustration, and then very quickly that becomes a learned behaviour. So it sees the dog, and you have this little thing click off in the brain and says, there's a dog, I have to bark, because that's what I do. I've learned to do that. And so it could be that, it could be a learned behaviour through frustration. It wants to go and play with the dogs and it's not allowed to because it's on the end of the lead. But that doesn't mean you should allow them to. So a bit of training up front, train your dog to watch you. You can do that using food. There's a really good game that I use a lot with dogs, and certainly with people who train with me, then I call it the out and back game. And you literally, I use shapes because they're nice and big, the dog can see them. You can do it on lead, you just throw the shape out to one side, the dog picks it up. As soon as it's eaten it, you call it in, give it another shape for sitting in front of you. And so the dog learns, as it's moving away from you, the best thing it can do is to come back and it'll get a treat. I normally say ready before I start as well, so I go, you ready? And then the game starts. It then means you can use ready as a cue to pay attention to, because something's going to happen with you, something exciting is going to happen in your space. So then when you see another dog, you can just go, you ready? Your dog will look at you as if to say, what's going on, what's happening next? You've got the dogs focused back on you and not on the dog in the street. So do some training at home, in the garden, get the dog to pay attention to you on a cue, whether that's using the out and back game, using like a ready as a cue, or whether you're luring the dog to watch you with a bit of food. Then when you see a dog, you can get the dog's energy back on you rather than the other dog. You can also hold a bit of food and lure the dog past the dog. But if the dog's lunging, at some point you're going to have to say no to your dog and stop the behaviour from happening. So you have to prevent the behaviour from taking place by saying no. If you do have to give a little check on the lead, then so be it. If it's lunging, you need to make sure the dog's coming back to you, and then reward once you pass the dog is the best thing, I think, for dogs barking at other dogs. What I would do is work out what your dog's favourite toy is and then take it off him, which sounds really mean, and keep that as a retrieving item. Okay, so go out and have a bit of fun with your dog and only get this toy out when you're going to retrieve, and make a big fuss of it when you get it out. So like, oh my god, what have I got, what's this? And get it, oh, do you want it, do you want it? And get really, really excited with it. And then you can do it on lead, so you can encourage your dog back if you're worried about them losing interest in it. So I'd go, what's this, you ready? You ready? And then I would throw it, and send your dog for it, and as soon as he's got it, get the pom-poms out. You know, oh, what a good dog, come on then, bring it here. When your dog's got it back, then take it off them, have a little bit of fun, put it away, move to a different area, and then do it again. If your dog is normally happy doing 4 retrieves, then do 3 and stop, or do 2 and then stop, and make a big fuss about putting the toy away. Do you want this? Are you sure? Right, you'll have to wait, put it away, and then the next time you get it out, it's like, oh, what have I got? And be really excited when you get it out. You can't force the dog to retrieve. All that you can do by trying to force the dog to retrieve is break your relationship with them. So that's not an option. So just make it fun. Get your dog's favourite toy, take it off them, and make it your favourite toy for playing with your dog. And then once your dog's really enthusiastic about retrieving, then start making it formal. But when you first start making it formal, the important one is steadiness beside you. So start off by building up the excitement beside you. They're on lead or holding the collar. Teach your dog to be really steady and not go and fetch the toy until you tell it. And then stop the game where the dog's really excited about playing. And that way it won't lose interest in the game and playing with you. Okay, so yeah, really should be getting rid of food rewards as quickly as you can. And if you want the technical terms, intermittent scheduling, reward scheduling, or positive reinforcement scheduling, there's lots of different words you can use for it, but basically just don't feed them every time. So say for example you're training a sit, and you want to train it into a sit state, easy one to describe. So you'd put your dog into a seat, and rather than feeding them immediately, you would hold the food and you'd just say, there's a good dog, oh good boy, I've got boy dogs, so that is a good boy, clever boy, and then I would feed. And so you're building up the amount of time between giving the command and rewarding. Okay. For loose lead walking, for example, it would be the same. Initially you might give a food reward, a little tidbit every 3 steps, and then it would be every 5 steps, and then every 10 steps, but you do it intermittently. So you would go maybe 1 in 10, and then 1 in 5, then 1 in 20, and then 1 in 3. So the dog never knows when it's coming. Dogs are kind of gamblers, really. It's like, oh, am I going to get it this time? Am I going to get it this time? Which is why you don't want to feed everything. Then phasing it out by drawing out the amount of time between the command and the reward. But always incorporate touch and incorporate words as well. So when you're training a recall, for example, when your dog comes back, take hold of the collar with one hand, give them a food with the other, give them a stroke. So you're combining everything. Yeah, I would really recommend that you got somebody out to help you with that, because there's loads of reasons why a dog has decided not to go out the garden. Sometimes it can happen where the dog gets a bit of a fright, and then we try to cajole them and, you know, baby them to go out, but what we're really doing is praising the behaviour that the dog's displaying at that moment in time. So say for example, if your dog got a fright as you went to go out the garden and Dougie's pausing, Dougie's heels in, and you then try babying them out, you would be praising the behaviour that the dog was displaying at that moment in time, and so you would be reinforcing him not wanting to leave the garden. And because there's so many different ifs and buts and what ifs and did this happen, did that happen, what did you do about it, then the best thing you can do would be to contact an experienced trainer, because Kangals are really, really strong dogs, strong independent dogs. So I would get an experienced trainer out to help you work out what the problem is and the best way for you to solve it with the least amount of stress. Okay, so in relation to the chewing and the biting, what I would be doing is something to soothe their gums. You can put the toys in the fridge, and that'll just take the, you know, the sting out of the gums when they're chewing, because it'll be quite hot and quite sore. So when they're mouthing, quite often they're looking for something that they can really like bump their gums on almost, you know, as the teeth are coming through. So I'd be looking for decent chew toys. There's some really good ones on Amazon actually. Kongs are really good as well, a stuffed Kong. Make sure it's the right size for her mouth. And if you're not going down the Kong route, if you're going to go for one, you know, one of the copies, the cheaper versions, make sure there's a hole all the way through, because otherwise the dog will put its tongue in it and get stuck. So if you're putting anything that you're stuffing, make sure there's a hole all the way through it. So things like that are really good, keep her amused, give her something to chew. Chewing releases endorphins in the brain, so it's a really good thing for your dog to chew, just not on us, that's all. Granix, their apple spray, is excellent. It's the only one that works as a chew deterrent. Just spray outside of the room, spray your cuffs, spray your wrists, hems, any dangling bits off cloth that your dog will be interested in. But that's it really, it's something we all have to go through. The main thing is not to make a game of it, and be serious. If your dog's mouthing you, give it something hard to chew, and something cool as well. So a couple of things, are you triggering the bark by reacting to the noise as well? So you're conscious, if you're really conscious of all of the different noises in the streets, then you could potentially be alerting your dog to them. The other thing is, what I tend to do with my dogs, which works for treating, what I recommend, is if there's any noise in the street and the dog's barking, in the first instance say, you know, acknowledge the dog, thank you, the dog's doing what it's supposed to do, which is bark. It's supposed to alert other members of the family or the members of the pack that there's something going on in the territory and it needs to be checked out. So your dog barks, say thank you, and then go and check it out, and your dog then knows it's done its job and it's settled. You can also teach a quiet command, and to do that I use food, and I just have the dog sitting quietly, and when they're sitting quietly I'll just say quiet and give them a bit of food. And so you're pairing the word with an action which inevitably is sitting quietly. And then if there's a noise in the street and the dog barks, I'd say thank you. The second time I would say, no, that's enough. And so I would change my tone of voice. The first time it's like, good dog, thank you. And I'd go and check it out and I'd go, right, that's enough. And I would mean it. But I would also work at teaching the dog to be quiet, and then you can give a quiet command if it's repetitive, or you can move the dog from the room. It is a tricky one. If it continues, you know, try those different things, but then if it continues, I would recommend you got someone round to help you with it, because it's really frustrating for us and our energy can make it worse. So we try a couple of things and then we start getting stressed, and it's like, oh, the dog's going to wake the neighbours, or it's going to become a new... It is a tricky one to do on your own, but those few things should help as well.